What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to episode 127 of the Rise to Glory here with Gibraltar Apex. And today I have for you guys the Champions League first knockout round against Atletico Madrid. So this is going to be a double header. There is a big gap between the two games, but we're not going to worry too much about that. Of course, if you watched the last episode, you'll know that I talked about coming back to do a Primera Division game in January following the transfer window. Now, the reason I decided not to do this was because, well, if we look at the transfers, nothing happened. The board gave me no money. I threw a hissy fit. They told me that due to the financial situation, we couldn't have more money, even though we had £51 million in the bank. I mean, I don't know what to say. Can I ask for more money now? I mean, it's a bit late now, but can I can't. Okay. Well, I wasted that request, I guess, didn't I, at the end of January? Anyway, so I tried to get money. Nothing happened. I decided it just wouldn't have been that interesting just to do the kind of one-off game. In terms of the transfers, if we just look here, you can see that Gaiganov finally came through, as did a few of the youngsters, of course. Gaiganov, a club record transfer, £26.5 million for the right back. But what a player he is. Absolutely insane mentals, really rapid, good stamina, great defending and really good physically. I'm excited to have him at the club, and I think he's going to be the long-term solution to our fullback position. Anyway, if we just quickly look on the outs, I can't really remember if there was any of significance. I don't feel like there was. Okay, there was a few actually, now I remember. There was one, really. That was Helic, and he left for Lille for 550k, which is peanuts really, but his contract was running out at the end of the year. I decided to cash in on him whilst I could. The 30-year-old Pole, he's been a good player for us. When I brought him in, I had a real excitement about him. You know, he came in on a Bosman. We'd kind of agreed a signing for him, and I thought he was going to be the player to kind of carry us. And I guess with a lot of our strikers in recent years, they've just kind of not made the grade, and we've had Mosca really firing in the goals, and with a switch into the one striker formation, you know, you kind of think of the strikers we've got through in recent years like Elmo and now Helic, they've just never quite lived up to the expectation. Anyway, just a quick look at the results since the kind of Champions League wrapped up. And of course, we didn't commentate the last Champions League game. We actually lost it 1-0 against Sporting. We did still, however, finish top of the group because I believe Red Bull Salzburg got a draw for us, which was kind of nice of them. It meant that we finished above Valencia on head-to-head because, of course, we beat them 1-0 and drew 0-0. You can see in Group F here. Sporting finishing third. All the positions were already decided, really, with the exception of the top two. But we did get that top seed. And, well, yeah, as I already mentioned, we're playing Atletico, who actually struggled in, well, I want to say in an easy group. It wasn't an easy group. You can see they were with CSKA Moscow, who actually topped the group, Juventus and Everton. And while Everton in the save, they shouldn't be scoffed at. That is a very tough group for all the teams. I'm kind of surprised CSKA finished top. But nevertheless, you know, we go into this, and I feel like there's a little bit in the way of expectations on our shoulders to try and get something here against Atletico. So, of course, this is a stage that we've got past the last 2 years. We're going to be looking to replicate that again here. But it is going to be a challenge for us. In terms of the actual team for today's game, there's no injuries, which is absolutely fantastic news. Lamas, he's got a little bit of a knock, but I think he's going to be on the bench regardless. We are going to quickly sort out our team, though, because it is slightly rotated. And the reason I had it rotated was, of course, because we had the kind of league game played at the weekend. And with this game being on a Tuesday, I didn't want to risk all our first-team players playing, particularly in the defensive areas. I did rotate things around. But no, I'm very excited by the team today. I'm hoping we can get a good result today, of course. And, well, we have the players to do exactly that. In terms of how we're going to line up for today's game, I'm not entirely sure yet. I need to make up my mind. Do I want to play Mora at centre attacking mid, or would I rather play him at centre defensive mid and then play Gilvan at centre attacking? It's a dilemma. I mean, the other option is to drop Mora and play Gilvan here, the Brazilian. What do I want to do? You know what? I think we'll give Gilvan a run out. We'll give him a chance, the young Brazilian. I think this is the team we're going to go with. In goal, we of course go with Ludwig Young. The goalkeeper, I mean, he's been a beast for us in recent years. He really has been a difference maker. I kind of find it funny. I go back through some of the older episodes of this save and look at the comments, and there's so many people calling for Young's head a few years ago now, but he has kind of fought back to bat away the haters. And the 28-year-old, you know what? I'm glad I stuck with him. I'm glad I didn't look to replace him, even though there certainly was a period when I tried that. And I'm delighted that today he will be starting in goal for us. Anyway, the defence is perhaps the strongest it's ever been in this save, and it's absolutely incredible, really. At left-back, we have Murphy Cabasele, the Belgian. 21 caps for Belgium, of course. Fantastic player, good attacking fullback. His technical's not absolutely crazy, but at 22, still room to develop, of course. Right-footed, but playing out on that left-hand side for us. At centre-back, we go with McMaster and Mustafa. Of course, John McMaster, the new kid on the block, really. We had Mustafa away for the African Cup of Nations along with JJ over January. As a result, McMaster played a little bit with Frigier. But this guy's really impressed me, the 26-year-old. You can see he's got some pretty good average ratings. In the Champions League, he's got a 7.07, which is nothing to be scoffed at. And I feel like him alongside Mustafa really makes for a nice duo, particularly because Mustafa's good in the air, and actually, his acceleration and pace aren't as bad as they once were, but they're still not kind of standout. And I feel like this guy and McMaster, they just work well together. Of course, at right back for today's game, we have Gaiganov to wrap up our back four. And as I said, I think we have a really good defence now. Gaiganov, 24 years old, Ukrainian, absolutely insane mentals, perhaps a little bit more defensive than Kabasele, but the two players, two fairly similar fullbacks in a lot of ways, and I'm hoping that they're going to be able to offer us, some support going forward. Anyway, at centre mid defend for today's game, we're going to go with Ismail JJ, the Ivorian. You'll notice he's back played in the Ivory Coast national team. He made 2 appearances for the national team really early on and then kind of got dropped for a number of years, but in recent years he's kind of fought back into the side. You can see he's done very well for us. He's done fairly well as well in the continental competitions with a 7.14 average rating. It's not absolutely insane, but he's done a job for us and he's come big in a few of these kind of knockout stage games in the past. Either way, a deep line playmaker, we go with Joe Bouchard. This is his 11th year at the club. He's been absolutely insane for us, the Canadian. He's actually declined a little bit as a footballer. He's definitely a player I want to keep at the club for as long as possible. At 28 years old, he's at least got probably 4 or 5 years left in him. But because his natural fitness is fairly good and his stamina isn't too bad either, I'm quite optimistic this guy might have some longevity. And I think he'd be a fantastic player to keep in the dressing room, long after perhaps he's kind of surrendered his first team kind of slot in the side. Anyway, centre attacking mid, as I mentioned, we're going to go with Gilvan, the Brazilian today. Give him a chance to shine. Out on the left, we go with the captain, Paul Smith. The Australian declined a little bit, really, I feel, over the last few years. Of course, he has had his fair share of injuries, but at 28 years old now, I'm looking for him to really have a massive impact for us. It's worth noting he did get in the World Team of the Year again. Of course, that's something that we've seen a little bit for him over the last few years, which I don't want to say surprises me, but it kind of does. I mean, I don't know if that's just due to a lack of talented left wingers, but you can see in the last 5 years, he's been in the squad 4 times, and particularly this year to fight back into the side. A really impressive kind of fight back, and when you compare him to some of the other teams and players that he's alongside, he really is kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. Either way, out on the right-hand side, we of course have Forster, the German. 24 years old, this guy. He's starting to get more adapted to playing out on the left-hand side. That is something we've been training him to do. I feel like having this guy is just a really good thing to have in the squad. Forster is a fantastic athlete, an incredibly fast player, and his capabilities to play on either wing mean that he's just a very good player to have, and he allows us to adapt to a majority of situations that we might encounter. And, well, you can't really fault him. And his contribution that he's made this year, 21 assists and 14 goals in non-competitive games. That's not a bad return, is it, in the pre-season that he had? Anyway, up front for today's game, we go with Mosca. This guy, he's been something else. 22 years old, the Brazilian. I mean, we've kept hold of him through January, which was a pretty tough achievement, but we've managed it. He has got an optional 3-year extension, of course, on his contract. 3 years left on his current contract. He's doing outstanding. Can he beat Tuzon's record of 74 goals in a season? I don't know. He's got 51 in all competitions right now, including 43 and 17 in the Premier Division. Truth be told, in the Champions League, he's perhaps been slightly underwhelming. Only 3 goals in 6 games, but nevertheless, this is a big stage for him to hopefully come big for us. Anyway, let's get into today's game. We do start off the first leg of this Champions League tie away from home, so we're going to be looking for a good performance. I think we're going to play the 4-2-3-1. Looking at the team, you can see all the players very, very fit, with the exceptions really of Jose and Machete, or the Mech, who actually is leaving for Malmo on a free transfer. Unfortunately, his contract ran out at the end of the year. This year, and he just didn't want to sign a new deal. We didn't actually have the ability at one point to sell him for £5 million, but he turned down the contract offers from PSG and Barcelona, which was a bit of a kick in the teeth, and he's instead opted to go to Sweden on a free. Now, makes me a little bit salty that I don't really want him on the bench. The more I think about it, he's a bit of a traitor. I don't want him. Let's get Graphite on. We'll have Graphite right back, Graphite left back, Mora, Frigier, Jose. It's a strong bench. It's a strong bench with a lot of variety. That is the team we're going to go with for today's game. As I said, away goal is going to be important here. We're going to play on the front foot with our 4-2-3-1 attack. Let's hope the boys can really kind of get things off to a flyer here. That's got to be the aim. Players looking confused and demotivated. I mean, Should we be favourites to win this? I mean, that's what I've kind of implied. I guess the game probably considers us not favourites. I feel like the fact we've got to the kind of group stage and to this knockout stage so many times, it means that we should be kind of considering to get further, especially considering we finished top of our group and Atletico didn't. Weird little thing I'm noticing here is we have snow on the pitch. It's February. I don't know if it is snow. It looks like snow in 2D. I guess we'll find out if we get a 3D highlight as a result of a goal. But a weird little observation. I don't feel like we play in the snow too much. Of course, Gibraltar, it's a lovely little peninsula with sun most of the year round. Nearer Africa, really, than, well, I was going to say England, but that's just a no-brainer, isn't it? It's like 10 miles between Gibraltar and Morocco. But nevertheless, snow. I mean, is that a bigger... Does that make the away disadvantage bigger? I'm going to say it does. 30 minutes gone here. No highlights as of yet, but a few bookings, which is a tiny bit concerning perhaps, particularly when you've got your centre-back and your centre defensive mid on the bookings there. You know, if it's a striker, it's quite easy just to tell them to not quite dive into as many tackles and not kind of, I guess, throw themselves around. But when you've got a centre-back on a booking, I don't know, you can't really afford to hold back a centre-back. I feel like, you know, if you tell a player you don't want them to dive in for tackles, they can often, you know, result in goals. You know, they just don't have that confidence. There's that fear factor. Either way, it's 0-0 here. There's been absolutely no highlights. I'm going to tell the players I'm not happy with that performance. Reacted fairly well to that. I think there was one exception to the rule. Mustafa now also on a booking. So with 45 minutes left, that is something to be wary of. I don't know if I trust JJ not to get sent off. I think we're going to take him off. Actually, I think the player I'm going to bring on here is going to be Graphite, the kind of Brazilian right back. A player who can definitely play centre mid. It's a position he actually plays naturally. Not been deployed there too many times over the years for us, but I definitely feel like that is the reason he's really on the bench, as well as his ability, of course, to play right back. The fact he can slot in that centre defensive mid role is useful for us. Looking at the stats, it's been a very tame game to say the least. Atletico perhaps had the better of the play. I'm actually going to change the system. I feel like we have to. And the way I'm going to change it is, well, as you can see on screen here, we're going to mix things up. I'm also going to bring in Andres Mora to play Trequartista for us. And we're going to go with the Paul Smith and Mosca duo up front with Gilvan and Bouchard and Graphite kind of making up a narrower midfield and Mosca just playing in between the lines there. But no, this game's been a very, very underwhelming one. We've not had a lot of chances going forward. Neither have Atletico, to be fair. But at the same time, I feel like we look like the team perhaps slightly more likely to concede, and as a result, I want to go to a more compact shape. Let's see what we can do with it. Either way, we're on the attack here. Paul Smith, the ball came to him somehow. Can he pull the ball back? He can. Tipped away. Gilvan, can he get the ball in now? He can't. He gets dispossessed, and now Alfonso going to bring the ball forward for Atletico. Nice tackle, though, by Mustafa. And we go straight into another highlight. Well, you wait all match for a highlight, and then you get two at once. Can we make something happen here? A ball to Smith. An ambitious ball. Doesn't find the mark. And Cabasele caught out of position here. Janssen. Adanov to Alfonso. Can he get the ball into the box? Cabasele says no. Get the ball cleared now, though. Let's not mess around with it in our own box. Graphite clears it straight to Atletico. And now they bring the ball forward. Alfonso, there's two men over on this left-hand side, and Bouchard goes charging in. And I've been worried about us sending off all game. I've been worried about a player making a silly tackle. He is not the man I expected to make that kind of challenge. He didn't need to make it there. The ball was at the halfway line. He really has hurt us there significantly. And as a result now, I am going to play slightly more defensive just for the rest of this game. You know, we're going to try and, I guess, boot the ball forward to the kind of front men and just see if they can do anything with it when the opportunity arises. But really in this game now, it's got to be about holding on and just trying to kind of, I guess, get the 0-0 here. It's a disappointment that we're not going to have any away goals unless there's going to be a late chance here. Cabasele whips it in. It's cleared away. It's going to finish 0-0 here. So we are basically looking to win the game outright at home. Unless they score here, which they hit the woodwork. I mean, I'm talking too soon. Janssen perhaps should have done better for Atletico there. That's their first real chance of the game. The ball could still find at the back of the net. Okay, not with a shot like that. Peterson lets fly and lets down his teammates. It finishes 0-0 here in the first leg. It's a decent performance. Good defensive performance, really, to keep the clean sheet, especially away from home against Atletico. Perhaps a little bit concerning, in fact, we didn't make much of it and we didn't get a shot away ourselves and a goal. That said, as I said, we need to win the home leg outright. Do I think we can do that? I definitely do. We've got a little while until that game, so really now we're hoping we're not going to pick up too many injuries. As you can see here, the second leg is coming in about a month's time, so I'm going to skip forward to that. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the episode so far. A little bit of a tame first leg. It should liven up, I think, in the second with it all to play for. So I will join you guys in just a second and we'll crack on with that second game from the Space Park. Okay guys, so we are back here for the second leg against Atletico Madrid. Of course, that 0-0 draw kind of leaves us in a little bit of a precarious situation because if we concede the first goal here, well, we know we have to win the game. That said, I feel pretty confident in our team. I feel like our team's done a good job and I'm hoping that we can, get the result that perhaps we deserve here today. I didn't talk about it earlier, but there was one game that kind of struck my mind and kind of popped into my head as one that I should perhaps talk about, and it was the fact that we beat Gibraltar Lions in the Rock Cup second round. Now, the Rock Cup itself has a second round, then the quarterfinal, then the semi-final, then the final. Now, the way that the draw works is usually we don't go in the second round. For the most part, we will just enter in the quarterfinal, or at least I thought that was the case. Maybe I'm wrong. Either way, what I'm trying to say is that this year we played Gibraltar Lions in our first ever round of it, which was a little bit of a shock. And, well, yeah, it means that we might have an easier draw at the end of the year. We'll have to see who else kind of progresses through in the Rock Cup, but it was a 2-1 win, so quite a good win. We actually took the lead, and as you can see, looking at the stats, it was a fairly good performance all in all. I'm now thinking that I was thinking back to when we used to have to play in the first round of the Rock Cup as a Segunda Division team, but that was like 17 years ago, so that's no excuse for my incompetence. Either way, let's not get too hooked up on that. Let's get into the Champions League game. Let's see what we can do here. I can barely talk at the moment, it seems. Bichard's out suspended. We have kind of a situation, I guess, to address here. I think this is the team we're going to go with. Something like this. Do I want to play Fireloss? I should play Paul Smith. I really should play Paul Smith. Pereira's going to come into the side, I do think, because Forster's been struggling a little bit with fitness. He had an injury, which he's still coming back from. We have Mosca up front. Lamas, Gilvan and Mora make up our trio in midfield. And then at the back, it's our standard back five that we had last game. So we'll submit this team. Of course, 0-0 in the first leg. It was a very underwhelming first game. I've got to hold up my hands and admit wasn't particularly entertaining. I'm hoping that we can have a better kind of performance today. I'm going to tell the players to go out there and have some fun. Let's learn from the mistake that was our team talk in the first game. Let's just encourage the players today, and that is what we are going to do. And, well, they react accordingly, and hopefully they can react accordingly on the pitch too. We are, of course, playing at the Space Park here. We are in our home blue strip. And while this is for a spot in the Champions League quarter-final, a stage of the competition which we've actually reached in the last 2 years. Of course, today we take on Atletico Madrid, who finished second in their group. And, well, after a 0-0 first leg result away from home, we really need to play for the win, I guess, in this first leg. And Mosca's going to have a chance. Santos with a nice save there in goal. But that was a clear-cut chance for us after just 5 minutes. Disappointed not to take it. McMaster's header going to be flicked over and beyond the back post, unfortunately for us. And, well, it will remain 0-0 here. Looking at it, Gaiganov on a booking. A little bit of a concern, particularly after the sending off last game of Joe Bouchard, a player who we are going to miss today. Our midfield trio in Gilvan, Lamas and Mora. Not necessarily our first choice, but I'm hoping it's going to serve us well here. As Smith whips in, Pereira hits the post. And well, for the second time this game, we've had a real opportunity to get an early lead in this game. And well, with 35 minutes left, maybe we'll have another chance. Mosca to Smith. Cabasele. Smith can't get it in the first time of asking. Whips it in again, and this time, well, the keeper has to tip it wide. It almost went in. Unfortunately, it didn't go in. It remains 0-0 here. And, well, I want to say it's a similar game to the first leg in terms of the fact that it's still 0-0. However, let's be real here. This has been a much improved performance for us. At half-time, it looks like it's going to be 0-0 unless there's a very late goal. And whilst 0-0 isn't a fantastic performance, we're still in this game and going into this kind of second half of football. We kind of know the task at hand for us here. Really, our kind of objective has got to be to try and win this and then just park the bus and keep a clean sheet. If we get one goal, 1-0 up, we'll be going through. If it finishes 1-1, we're not going through. Really, we need to aim for 2 in the second half. I feel like that's the way we have to approach this game. That said, of course, the clean sheet and the 1 goal is perhaps a way we could look to approach this game. But I feel like, given the first half performance, we just need to perform more kind of the same, really. It's not been a bad first half by any means. And I'm hoping we can build off it today. Mosca's not had the best game. Pereira also struggling a little bit for fitness. I could bring in Forster, and I think we will do it at this point. Coming back from injury, but we'll let him come back into the side. I'm also going to take off Lamas for JJ. Lamas currently on a booking with 30 minutes left in the game. Really don't want to risk an unnecessary sending off. Of course, Gaiganov Still on a booking himself, the right back, but he's a very talented player, not the kind of player we can afford to take off like Lamas is. And while looking at the stats here, it remains tight. And you'd have to say Atletico have grown into this second half. They've been perhaps the slightly better team. That said, with 17 minutes left, it remains 0-0. We could be going to extra time. I don't want to say it too prematurely. You'd feel like there's going to be a few chances left in this game yet for one team to perhaps get their noses ahead. Of course, if we're the team that concede, we're in trouble because we'll suddenly need two. So at this late stage, really, we've got to focus on, well, not conceding. If we can score, fantastic. Mora, take a bow, makes it 1-0. Let's go, boys. Atletico Madrid, they've been okay in this game, but ultimately we've got the goal that matters, and we've perhaps slightly edged it in this game. It's been a good defensive performance by us. There's not been many chances for Atletico. We've seen our fair share of chances, squandered, particularly in that first half. I'm glad that we've dealt with that now, and now we can just go on defensive. We can drop everyone a little bit deeper and just look to play a 4-4-1-1 and hopefully just see out this game. But of course, one more goal puts us in a great position. Mora in the box, dispossessed. Palermo going to try and clear the ball straight to Gilvan, though. You can see we're not too bothered about committing men at the pitch, although Smith going to create space, hits the post with the cross, and well, it was almost followed up by Mosca there. Gilvan really struggling for fearless at this point. Unfortunately, we don't really have an option to bring on for him, which is a little bit of a problem, but that's just the nature of the fact that we have a distinct lack of centre mids at the moment in the squad, and I do feel like we still need one or two more in the kind of first team, really. And well, with Bouchard suspended, it leaves us even lighter on the ground in that department. That said, it looks like we're going to be going through. It's not been a classic, if I'm honest. It's not been a dramatic Champions League knockout stages. But for us to get to the quarterfinals again is a monumental achievement. We've done it in I want to say, convincing manner. We didn't concede. We scored the one goal that we needed to, and we will go marching on. A good little result there. And of course, we matched the expectation that I kind of feel like we've set of ourselves over the last few years, which is nice. We get paid £3.92 million. We, of course, move into the quarter-final. When is the draw for that? It's actually on the Friday, so let's go forward to that. Let's get to the draw, and let's see who we're going to get put up against. It's going to be a big draw for us. I feel like over the last few years, we've got perhaps a little bit unfortunate with the team we faced at this stage coming up in the competition. But, well, to reach the quarter-final again, I think is really worth kind of an applause. It's a great achievement for us, and, well, I'm proud of the boys, and they should be proud of themselves. We have this quarter-final. Let's see who we can get. CSKA, Moscow, AC Milan, Porto, Man City, Leverkusen, Barcelona, Sevilla. Who would I want out of these teams? Sevilla would be perhaps favourable. It looks like they must have won the Europa League to get to the Champions League, and they've just kept winning. CSKA and Moscow have a pretty good squad to my knowledge. Bayern Leverkusen have a good squad. Barcelona, I wouldn't mind trying to rematch them, really. I think the big team to avoid is Manchester City if we can. Anyway, let's put it on automatic draw. Let's see who we're going to get matched up against. A little bit of pressure on us here. As I said, I kind of want Sevilla. They've now gone out the hat. We don't want Man City. Don't give us Man City. As I said, Barcelona or Porto, I'd definitely take. That would be preferable. And we will get Barcelona again. So it's going to be a familiar foe, of course, if we just look at the kind of results. Last year, you can see here that... Was it last year or was it the year before? It was the year before last. Jeez, time flies. Time flies. If we look here, you can see Barcelona beat us in the quarter-final 2 years ago. And it was 2-1 on that occasion. I'm hoping that we can make amends coming up here and now, I guess, next episode. It's not going to be for a little while. Those fixtures start off in April time. We've got a month to get players back to full fitness, hopefully wrap up the league. And yeah, hopefully build on upwards from that. Anyway, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode today. As I said, the game wasn't particularly entertaining. I feel like I was a little bit rusty myself when it came to the live comp, but we've made it through. We keep marching on. It's going to be Barcelona next time. Hopefully we can get a result there. And well, you can almost taste the Champions League semi-final already. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow.